Good morning all, welcome to camp. All very nice and warm and cozy up in the rooftop tent. It's always nice sleeping up there, especially this morning when the rain came in. Probably about, maybe about 3 o'clock in the morning I think it hit. Just a real steady rain. So everything is now pretty soaked, the ground's very wet. It's just easing off now. You can see a tiny bit of blue sky on the horizon. So hopefully everything will dry out a little bit before we have to pack away the awning and all the rest of it. I thought I'd just sit down and talk about how everything's been going, things that have worked really well and things that haven't, just so you guys have a bit of an idea. So by the time you get through a week of camping, you do figure out what works, what doesn't, what you should have brought, what you shouldn't have brought, which will obviously then make your next camping experience even better. I think it's always good to have these sort of feedback loops in your life to sort of review how everything's going, figure out an action plan to obviously address those, and then keep doing that loop, and eventually you'll get better in the short way of putting it. So what's worked really well, the tent has been awesome. The tent has been really good to have up there. Electric blanket, again, we've probably only used it 2 or 3 nights, but the nights we have, it has been so worth it because it wouldn't have been nice to get into a cold bed. I will say the zippers on there, especially in strong wind, they just rattle and jingle. They don't fold, they just jingle, and we're definitely going to be replacing those with probably some like ropes, some pull ropes, once I get around to having some time to pull the old ones off and try some new knots. The awning again has been brilliant. I can't fault it. It's look, it's done everything we've needed it to do. Only thing I could really think of was I want to get the updated poles. I've got 2 of the updated poles, which basically got a bit of a bend on the end of the spike, what you get through the arm, and what that does is when it's windy it stops the pole from just completely falling out. I've got 2 of those and 2 of the old style ones, which are just a straight spike, whereas I'd like all 4 of them to be the ones with the slight bend in them, and maybe another awning wall, but really with 2 awning walls you can get a lot done. So the way I've got it set up now, we've got a bit more privacy of where other people are going to be walking and looking in, and keeping it open to where we want to look, which is out on this nice little grassy area. Stove again has been great. Coleman even temp, really liking it. It is big, but if you find a home for it, I'm just running it on a LPG gas bottle, just a 2 kilo one, and it's got more than enough oomph for anything that we need for it. The hot plate we use all the time. You pick your meals where they're not going to be too messy, and you can just usually wipe them down with some paper towel to clean the actual hot plate. That would also sort of seasons it as well, because it leaves a little bit of that oil residue on there, which will protect the metal and obviously make it a little bit more non-slip next time you go to use it as well. Water pump's been good, water system's been fine. We have had to fill up once, but that was again not an issue. I'd like to put a pressure relief, like a bleeder or a breather, in the top of the tank, because at the moment you have to crack the lid every day or so to relieve that pressure, because as you're pumping water out it creates a vacuum, and it's obviously going to be harder and harder for that pump to pull water out of that tank. Also affects the water level sensors in there as well, so sometimes you'll find you'll crack it and then you'll notice the tank level on the red vision will drop slightly as well, which is fine. I'd rather it be accurate than telling me fibs. The rear drawer setup has been really good. One thing that I am working towards is making all of my bowls, cups, plates, that sort of stuff a little bit more lightweight and more slimline. That way they just take up less space. I bought myself the Sea to Summit X Bowl from BCF the other day and really like it. Used it the other night, and yeah, I'm probably going to get rid of all my tin bowls, because as soon as you put heat in them, the tin becomes so hot that you can't really hold it. You need a second bowl, and they take up so much space when you're not using them. It's not every camping trip that you use them, so they just take up all this real estate when they don't always need to. So I think down the track they'll all get replaced with just the X bowls, so that they're nice and lightweight and slimline. That way I can put more stuff in that bottom cavity underneath the coffee table, whatever it's called. Slide out table on the end again has been invaluable. I've been using my laptop to start editing and taking photos and everything off my camera, and it's a perfect little spot to do it because it's like a stand-up desk. It's an easy reach to the inverter plugged into the Anderson plug, and obviously having the lights in the back of the car there has been really good as well. We have learnt that especially when you're set up and doing stuff, You don't want to be opening the top drawer as much as you can, because obviously you can't open it very far without needing to close the coffee cabinet lid. And to do that, you've obviously got to then take all the stuff off to allow the drawer to open, which if you need to, you can. It's not a huge issue, but we've learnt to sort of keep a lot of the foodstuffs that we're going to use close to the front of that top drawer, so that way you only have to crack it and grab what you need to out. But I think there's going to be some revision in how we pack things in there, just to make sure that we can still access everything. And one thing that will definitely happen is the pocket where I'm storing the stove is going to get replaced with a pull-out pantry. It just feels like a bit of a wasted space. It's a good spot to store the stove, but the stove can go anywhere really. It's not that, like, it's pretty durable. It just can go anywhere. You can get stuff packed on top of it. It doesn't really matter too much. Whereas that storage space, I think you could use quite often. So ideally, I'd like to turn that into a bit of a pull-out pantry. Obviously, that'll be a bit of a big job to make, because I don't want to have to pull the whole drawers out to assemble everything. But we'll get there in the end. The air hose reel, like, I'm still having trouble with trying to get it to roll back in neatly and reliably. It sometimes takes me 5, 10, 15 goes of pulling it out and then letting it reel back in for it to eventually make itself nice and square and allow all of the hose reel back on. I've tried it with the airline pressurized, I've tried it with it flat. It doesn't seem to make a huge difference. Having it pressurized does help a little bit, but neither one seems to guarantee that it's going to be nice and easy. Perhaps I'll just do a simple air outlet on the drawer wing, and then just have my normal ARB orange hose from there, because it's not a huge issue having to move the hose in and out. I mean, this is obviously a convenience, but every time you pack it away, I think you spend more time trying to pack it away than you would pulling a hose out and then just storing it wherever you need to go. So that'd be something I think I'll review in the future. I wouldn't mind a water hose reel, and again, I don't know if I'd have the same issues with that, but that could be a better option, because I'd only have to pull it out like, say, a meter every time I use it, so reeling it back in is going to be nice and easy. Whereas, you know, every now and then I may pull it out 2 or 3 meters or whatever, but it gives me options of what I can do. So that I may look at swapping those ones over. And the only real failure I suppose we've had on this trip has been the hardcore LED light panel, the actual panel you use to control it all. For whatever reason, there's no power coming out of it. I'm not too sure. Luckily, I have a backup one that's right next to it that I just swapped them over, and the lights and everything still works, which is good. There's power going to it all, but there's no power coming out of the control panel, so I'll probably have to pull that apart and have a look and see if there's like a contact loose or something like that. Otherwise, I may have to get in contact with Hardcore and see if I can get a replacement. The 200's been excellent. I can't fault it at all. From the driving we've been doing, no real issues. It's been doing really well on fuel, around your sort of 16 and a half on the road, and then obviously off-road goes up a little bit more, and you know, going slow through dunes and that sort of thing. But no, I've been really happy with it. It's comfortable, it's quiet, heaps of power, lots of room, and yeah, haven't had any issues with the car whatsoever. One thing I'm very glad I was cautious with, and that I did err on the side of caution of, was bringing 4 max tracks. I don't particularly seek out to get bogged, but it happens. And sometimes it's not even just for me as well. Sometimes we're going along and like the last, I think the tally at the moment is about 4 cars that we've had to rescue that have been near the edge of going in the water. And being able to do that without some sort of traction boards, like the max tracks, we wouldn't have been able to do it. It would have been so much harder work. Having 4 max tracks there is super ideal, because you can get all 4 wheels up, or even get 2 wheels up and then a bit of a platform for them to sit on later. I think coming up I'm going to install the swing arm on the back of the Kmart bar. That'll have the spare wheel that'll move up there, give me a little bit better departure angle, sort of more ground clearance on the rear. Also, then I can mount a pair of max tracks on the spare wheel rather than in the car, because obviously once they're all sandy and down this way, and with the current weather, that sand does sort of stick to everything because it's still a little bit damp, so you can't really get it all off at the beach, so you end up with a bit of sand coming in the car, whereas I prefer to keep the max tracks out of the car if I can. More room inside for everything else. The Sabre recovery rope and the soft shackles have also been used many times. I would prefer to use them over a strap, just because it feels a little bit sturdier, it coils up so much easier. The soft shackles are great because you can loop them through anywhere you need to go, even if there's an eyelet that seems too small. Usually the rope will fit through it. And there's also the factor of safety as well. If they do break, they're not going to smash a windscreen or something like that, as compared to like a metal shackle, which obviously will be better in some situations, but if it does go, then it's going to do a lot of damage and potentially be fatal as well. There's been lots of cases where people have been killed by flying metal shackles, and I don't want to end up as one of those statistics, or anyone I'm driving with either. Yeah, no, everything's been going really well. I probably would have preferred, I think, to have a bit more of a, I probably should have brought a map book, would have been the better thing to say. I made the decision at the last minute not to bring one because I thought we'd have reception all the time.